Thank you, Mayor Meyer. And welcome, and thank you very much for coming out to our town hall meeting. I think this is my 14th that I held with CHAP, and it is nice to be able to come back up from the General Assembly and to share with you what is happening, what's going on, and more importantly, and the part that we enjoy most is opening up the floor for questions and for dialogue to make sure that we are understanding what your concerns are and what kind of feedback you want to provide on the priorities that we have down in the General Assembly. And I think we've got everybody. I also want to, you'll notice that we are being recorded today, and so we are very glad to be doing that. I want to particularly recognize Democracy on Air, who is putting this online to make this interactive. And the thing that I love about this is actually being run back there by several George Mason University interns. I'm very proud to have George Mason in my district, and love the fact that they came in and want to go ahead and get this information out to the public. So for the public that is out there who might be watching, welcome. Don't know that I can add too much more than that. Yesterday was an extraordinarily hard day because I've known Governor Northam for a long time and have a huge amount of respect for what he's managed to do, and it is really hard to reconcile that against what we saw back from his college yearbook in 1984. And the simple fact is that it really does just undermine the trust that I think he has built with Virginia, and it's really hard to be able to lead effectively once you've gone ahead and done that. So anyways, I think we'll wait until we see what Governor Northam says with his 9 o'clock press conference. But again, sad day for Virginia, uncharted territory, and we'll see what happens. So anyways, you'll be very popular. All right, so Chap and I are going to kind of tag team this, but one of the things that we wanted to do is provide a little bit of a setup for what does the budget this year look like. The good news for 2018 is that we did have a surplus, so we had about $555 million that we hadn't spent through that biennium. That surplus goes to three things, and so by code, part of it goes to the Water Quality Improvement Fund anytime that you have a surplus. Part of it goes to the Revenue Stabilization Fund, and so this is a special fund that gets socked away and can only be used vis-a-vis the Constitution when we have miscalculated revenue halfway through a budget cycle. All right, so the Federal Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, this has presented a bit of a conundrum for Virginia because typically the idea of conformity, making sure that what we do conforms with the federal level, is a very mundane exercise that goes through unanimously. Because of the very big changes at the federal level, though, it does affect Virginia in some ways that we need to step back and look at our own tax policy. All right, so in terms of what to do next, and this is what the General Assembly is really struggling with. And so there's a couple of different options on the table. And honestly, my perspective is it needs to be a mix of approaches. And so the governor had proposed making the earned income tax credit refundable. And so that's something that already happens at the federal level. That is a program that is specifically targeted towards working families making less than $50,000 per year. The other one is to raise Virginia's standard deduction. And so that hasn't actually been touched since the early 2000s, Chap, I believe. And so every year that we don't raise it, our system actually becomes less progressive. And so the idea of raising that standard minimum deduction at the Virginia level certainly helps those out at the lower levels, but also helps out those at the upper levels as well, again, making the system a little bit more progressive. There has been a proposal to decouple Virginia and the federal government, where you'd be able to do standard deduction at one level and then do itemized at the state level. That could be problematic. That actually takes out a lot more money from Virginia's system. All right. We're not going to go into much detail about all these. This is just to get your brains thinking about the range of issues that we're dealing with this year to prompt you for questions. Redistricting reform has been a big issue this year, something that I know Chap and I believe strongly in. The Senate is taking the lead on, I think, the better of the bills, and so that's going to be coming over to the House for our consideration. The trick is getting that out of subcommittee and committee onto the House floor.